What's up, everybody? I'm Travis, and this is...
I'm Becca.
And we are here today to talk to you about something that many of us have in common, and that is...
Eating.
Food.
Yum.
Food and eating, for sure. So, Becca, let me ask you this question. What is a restaurant or two that you and your family like to go to?
We love to go to Skyline and Texas Roadhouse.
I love those places. Those are really, really good.
What about you?
Well, if it starts with a C, you'll probably find us there. We're talking Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, and City Barbecue. Those are just a few of the places that we love to go and chow down on. But today...
Why are we talking about this?
Yeah, exactly. But why are we talking about food? I'll tell you why. Because we are in the next chapter of the B.L.E.S.S series, and the E in B.L.E.S.S stands for Eat. Okay? And in this chapter, when we read it as a staff, I gotta be honest,
there's lots of pushback.
We had some hard time with this, and so basically the book is trying to convince you to invite people over to your house, to have dinner with them, to share a meal. Yeah. And we came up with lots of reasons.
Why not
to do that, okay? And some of those reasons might be...
just having people in your space. I will say I was one of the people that's like, I just don't really like having people over in my house. It's a lot of pressure to get ready for something like that.
It really is. I mean, there are some of us that are
They're
really equipped to be hospitable, to invite people over. You're like, this is my thing. I love it. And for some of us, we're just like, get out of my house. Yeah. It's a lot of work to get your house cleaned up.
To clean, to dust, to get the animals to behave, to get the kids, you know, all ready and everything.
Exactly. You got to throw stuff in closets. You got to pretend like your house is really in order when most of the time it's a hot mess.
It is.
We are very much in agreement with that, and it is difficult. It requires a lot of time and energy to kind of build this habit, but
there's a way around this.
There is.
Which is why we listed our favorite places to eat.
That's right. In fact, you can go to a place where they will make the food, they will clean up after, and all you have to do is pay a few people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is your way around having to have people in your house. You can share a meal without involving your house.
That's right. That is just an option.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you are already thinking to yourself, there is no way, there's a 0% chance that I'm inviting people to my house. Guess what? You still have another opportunity to take someone out for a meal, and that is to actually go to a restaurant. We love our restaurants, and our families are big fans of them. Yeah. But...
if I was going to do this chapter, I'm definitely going to invite somebody for coffee, or I'm going to, you know, make a lunch date. It's going to be easier for me to take that route.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, okay, so, Becca, why should we do this? We realize it's going to take some effort. It's going to require maybe some money, maybe some time. Why even do this?
You have to do it because you have to build relationships. And to be intentional is to make plans, to sit down and have a conversation over some good food.
That's right. There's a lot of great conversations that happen with our staff over lunch. And
some fun times.
We love to cut up. We love to have fun, but we also get into some serious topics too. Yeah. And it is a great way for you to get to know people, to build relationships, to establish those.
One of our staff members even said, you have to do this because it's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth the work. That's why we do it. In fact, not only should we do it, but we read in our B.L.E.S.S chapter 5's book that Jesus modeled this. In fact, his very first miracle was performed at a wedding feast where he turned water into wine. Yeah. Probably made a lot of good friends there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And time again, we hear about stories where Jesus ate with sinners, ate with people that were different than him, and it made an eternal difference in the lives of those people that he interacted with. And that is why we really do this, because if Jesus modeled it, we should do it.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, Pastor Bill is about to come here in just a few minutes and discuss more on this topic, but we really hope that you take time and consider in the next month or two taking someone out to for a meal or coffee or whatever it is.
Anything that you need to do this part, you should make the effort to do.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well,
that's all
enjoy.
We got. Bye.
All right. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics today, eating. Are you excited? We're talking about eating. It's a very spiritual experience. And you can use this. utilize it to really make a huge difference in someone's life. And I hope that you'll leave here today saying, all right, I'm going to look at eating a little bit differently. I want to take some opportunities to really bless someone with the opportunities I have to actually eat every single day. But as you saw in the video we just watched, it's definitely something that maybe at first seems a little bit difficult to do. I will start by saying this to you. Eating with someone is an act of intimacy. And I take it for granted because I was literally watching the video and looking out here and saying, man, I just want to go out and eat with everybody in this room right now. I don't even know everybody in this room, but how cool would it be to just kind of go out and hang out, get to know each other better? Now, I'm wired that way, but I know that when we struggled and wrestled with this in discussing it as a staff, we realized not everybody's wired that way. It's a little bit intimidating for some people to say, hey, would you come eat with me? It might be that this idea comes to our minds like, wow, we don't know each other that well. Will it be comfortable? When you think about it, you might be, when you think about who you eat with, who you've eaten with the last week, who you've eaten with the last month even, it may only be, for some of you, it may only be people you know well. And if that's the case, yeah, this might be a little bit challenging at first to think about. There's this weird feeling that I get once in a great while. Maybe you feel it too. And if you're in here and you're a student, maybe you can definitely relate to this. But I remember the first day at school as a freshman in high school, getting my tray of food and walking into the room full of tables and thinking, now what do I do? Like, who can I eat with? Who will be okay with me eating with them? And how's this going to go? It's just this weird, nervous feeling, anxious feeling. And you would think at the age of 49 that I would not experience that very often. I still experience it. And the way that I know that eating is an act of intimacy is because every once in a while I'll feel that. Especially like there was this one time when I do a lot of weddings as a minister. And I happened to know either the groom or the bride really well, but didn't really know anybody else. But I performed the wedding ceremony, was going to stay for the reception, went to the table chart, the seating chart, and I was looking and I found my name and I saw I'm sitting with absolutely no one that I know. Now, I'm a bit of an extrovert, and so I don't mind meeting new people, but even I at that moment felt like running away. Like, no, maybe I'll just sneak on out of here and not sit there because I don't know these people. What if they don't like me? You know? What if they think I'm weird? Like everybody does, you know? And so these thoughts come to your mind, like, what if it don't go well? What if, when you think about it, those thoughts prove that there's an intimacy that happens when you eat together. Now, we set this up down here. I don't know if you're online able to see that or not, but just a pub table with a carafe. When I see that chrome carafe, my heart just swells up with love and joy and peace and hope. It's like Christmas in my heart because I know that probably in there is a hot pot of coffee. And there's something about getting to a table with someone else with a cup of coffee, maybe even a pastry, that just makes the world a better place, right? And I think God uses a moment like that with someone else. We just kind of push aside our inhibitions just a little bit. We kind of drop our guard just a little bit. We just kind of open up and we just talk. And you can really, really get to know someone when you just get a cup of coffee or get a meal together. It's one of the reasons why when we talk about small groups here at Hickory Grove, more often than not, we really push people to meet in homes rather than on campus. Because we've noticed in some of our groups that have done both, where they've met on campus, which typically ends up being, during one of our Sunday morning services, so it kind of limits it to an hour. You're in a room that's, a campus room. It doesn't quite look like a living room or a kitchen. And you do that, and that's great, and it's awesome, and you can still connect. But there's something happens when instead you meet in someone's kitchen or living room. I know when our small group comes to our house, it doesn't take us no time to where we're in a circle around the island in the kitchen, and all there has to be is some tortilla chips and a bowl of salsa, and everything is getting good. We just start talking about everything. And it's just a connection. And that's what happens when you eat, when you grab coffee, when you grab pastry. You probably know this already, but I want you to just take a moment to realize this is intimate. This is something powerful. Something relational happens when we get together and we eat. So I would ask you, what if you were to look at every meal on your schedule as a potential opportunity to bless someone? Now, the last thing I would tell you to do is, if you really love Jesus and love people, take every meal you eat and schedule it with someone you barely know. You'll be like, sorry, not doing it, right? Because if you're like me, I can't wait when I know I'm going to have a meal with my wife, I'm going to have a meal with my family, and those are good, intimate times where we just enjoy talking together, catching up, blah, blah, blah. But what if you just took a couple of those meals in a month? We'll talk more about that in just a moment, but just what if we took just a couple of them and got intentional about it, got prayerful about it, and say, hey, I'm going to use this opportunity to bless someone I may not know that well. I don't know where they are spiritually, but I believe in Jesus, and I'm hearing from my pastor, I'm hearing from this B.L.E.S.S book we're reading that apparently this will bless someone if I go have lunch with them or go have breakfast with them or go get coffee with them. What if you took that opportunity to do that? And so that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. And here's another thing I want you to think about. We're going to talk about an example of Jesus in a moment, but what if we were to be like Jesus, treat others in such a way where you get invited to meals? And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but that was, to me, one of the most little mind-blowing moments in reading this chapter of the B.L.E.S.S book. I'm like, wait a minute, whoa. Live your life in such a way, treat others in such a way, engage others in such a way to where you're the one getting the invites. And I can't even explain to you how that's going to work. I can't give you a formula for that and say, well, here, if you do A plus B, it will equal C. But I know this. A lot of the meals that we see that Jesus had, he wasn't hosting. He was the invited one. And he lived his life in that way. He definitely was a lover of his neighbors. He was a pretty popular guy. Now, it probably helped that he healed people a lot, right? That'd get you invited to some meals right there, right? So we're not going to be Jesus, but we can certainly attempt to bless others and love others and show grace to others just like Jesus did. And when we do that, friends, I have this feeling that you're going to be the one that gets invited occasionally to a coffee gathering, to a breakfast, to a lunch. Something to think about. You know, in Luke 7:34, Jesus actually acknowledged that the religious leaders accused him of being two things: a glutton and a drunkard. You know, when there's false accusations, there's usually like one little seed of truth in there, and then it just gets completely misconstrued. And that's what happened with Jesus here. But the seed of truth that was there is that Jesus did eat with people a lot. He enjoyed meals a lot with people. He did that. He also prayed and fasted, but he also enjoyed being with people. His first miracle was performed at a wedding feast that he was invited to. And then there's this quote from Bible scholar N.T. Wright. He says, when Jesus himself wanted to explain to his disciples what his forthcoming death was all about, he didn't give them a theory. He gave them a meal. He said, this bread represents my body. This cup represents my blood. He gave them a meal. Jesus knew the power of a meal together. And so, I want us to look at an example of Jesus partaking in a meal. My favorite example of this happens in the book of Matthew chapter 9. Now, several weeks ago, we actually spent a lot of time in this passage and looked at a bigger portion of it. I want to look at a bit of a smaller part of this account, but this is Jesus having a meal in someone else's home. He was invited. And here's what it says in Matthew 9, starting at verse 10. It says, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? On hearing this, Jesus said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. So, Jesus is having a meal at Matthew's house. And listen, the people of that day who would have heard about this happening, this gathering at this home, and all the people that were there, they would say, wow, what a motley crew. What a horrible crowd is at that place. And you've probably heard it documented before, heard other preachers talk about this, but being a tax collector was like the worst of the worst back in the first century. Typically, it was a Jewish person who was collecting taxes. They were basically taking money from their fellow Jewish people and giving it to the Roman government, who was very much non-Jewish. In fact, the emperor thought he was divine, thought he was deity. And so it not only was bad because they were taking money from their fellow Jews, they were giving it to another religion, basically. And so in synagogues, dare I say churches of the first century, it was okay to hate tax collectors. It was okay to write them off, to cheer against them, to think they were just the worst of all humanity. Well, Jesus had a meal with a room full of the worst of all humanity. And here's the thing. In simple terms, what happened here is right before this passage, Jesus says, Matthew, come follow me. And Matthew walked away from his tax collector booth and immediately followed Jesus. And I believe that he loved Jesus so much and was so thankful and grateful that he was about to be a part of all that Jesus invited him to be a part of, that the best thing he knew to do was, hey, come over for dinner. He loved Jesus and wanted to be with Jesus, wanted to get to know Jesus even more. So he invited Jesus over and Jesus agreed. But then Matthew also loved and cared about his rowdy, wild and crazy tax collector friends. In fact, I would argue this. One of the worst things that we have sometimes done as Christ followers is think that we've got to defriend everybody that doesn't believe in Jesus the same way we do. Well, who's going to take the hope of Jesus to those friends? Now, make no mistake about it. Sometimes our friends aren't going to understand everything that we're experiencing as we begin to follow Jesus. My argument would be, fine, if they don't understand and they pull away, that's on them. But don't you pull away. Matthew cared enough about his tax collector friends to say, I've got Jesus coming over for a meal. Psh, I'm going to bring my coworkers, my former coworkers, to come on over too, so that they can get to meet Jesus too, so that they get to know Jesus too. And what Jesus didn't do, which I think is the coolest part of this encounter, is he didn't say, oh, I'm not sure what the Pharisees are going to think about this. You know, me, a rabbi, having a meal with a bunch of hated, scum of the earth tax collectors, at least that's how they viewed him. What are they going to think? He didn't care because he was Jesus. And that's who he had come for. And I think that's the tension that we might need to wrestle with if you're a follower of Jesus today. And if you can fall into that same rhythm that most all of us fall into, where when you think about who you eat with, who you grab coffee with on a regular basis, look back on your week, your month, maybe even your year, and you're like, wow, it's only people who are like me. It's only people I know well. It's only people I am comfortable with. But so maybe the challenge is but wait, what if I pulled a Matthew and created an opportunity for someone to be blessed towards Jesus? And you don't have to do it all the time. Just do it sometimes. Just do it once in a while. You can make the argument that you are most like Jesus when you eat with sinners. By the way, that's what you are. That's what I am. And once we can kind of remember that, it kind of flips the script a little bit. It takes us away from team Pharisee to team sinner saved by grace, like those tax collectors, like Matthew was. Right? We need to always remember that. Anybody we ever look at in our spheres, where we work, where we live, where we play, where we go to school, Anybody you see, no matter how different they might be, based on what you know or even don't know about them, you and I are no better than anyone else. We are all created in the image of God. And God sent his son, Jesus Christ, to die for each and every human being on this planet. And if it weren't by his amazing grace, I wouldn't be standing in front of you talking about it right now. I could be doing who knows what on a Sunday. I used to feel sorry when I could see a church right from my yard in Sand Hill Bottom, Kentucky. And I would watch the cars pull in while I'm dribbling my basketball out on Sunday morning. I'm like, oh my lands. And I would say, they were there all day. I don't know what they did. I think they ate. I hope they ate. They were there all day. Those cars would pull in and they would not leave till nighttime. And I thought, what are they doing all day? That looks horrible. And now God has a sense of humor. I do it every Sunday now. Not all day, but a big chunk of the day. Here's the thing. You are most like Jesus when you just sit down and have a meal with someone who may or may not be very far from God. Jesus did it willingly. Another cool moment is when he looked up at Zacchaeus, another tax collector who had climbed a tree and says, hey, buddy, I'm coming. He invited himself over. Try that. There's another one to try if you're really bold, like, hey, we're going to have a meal together at your place. See how that goes. Someone might be like, oh, let's do this. All right. Wow, I can't believe that they want to have a meal with me at my house. That's kind of weird, but okay, we'll go for it. Jesus did that. You can give that a try if you want. I believe all around us, every single day, there are people that you may be lightly acquainted with. You may be very acquainted with. But man, they are lonely. They don't feel known. They don't feel connected. In this day and age, we have all the digital connectivity at our disposal that we've ever had in our entire lives, not in our entire lives, in entire history of the universe. Yet we are the loneliest generation that has ever walked this planet because it's fool's gold. I could pick this up and talk to so many people, thousands of people at once, and be completely isolated and unknown, really not truly known. I can cause people to think I got it all together and happy and having a great life, a great week by using all this. And yet I could be going through the hardest stuff I've ever been through. That's who you are walking through, walking among, where you work, where you live, where you play. And if you're feeling like maybe I ought to ask them out for coffee, I would say that might actually be the Holy Spirit of God wanting to use you to bless someone. You may actually be doing the best thing they've experienced all week, all month, all year. It might be a first for them. No one's even ever asked me if they wanted me to go to lunch with them. This is how powerful this is. And if we can kind of push through, we can make an eternal difference in someone else's life. Now again, I know this isn't easy, and one of the biggest excuses someone would give, that I would even give, is time. Time. I don't know if I got time. I'm busy. I got this going on. I got this going on. So I will give you a conservative estimate. Conservatively, you eat 90 times a month. And listen, let's be honest. That's crazy conservative. That's going on 3 meals a day. And I have people say, well, I really skip breakfast almost every day. You do, but you got that thing that you throw in your backpack or your purse or your briefcase. That counts, right? That's a traveling meal or whatever, right? There are conservatively, we're not even counting going out for coffee, grabbing that pastry. Conservatively, 90 times a month, you're going out for a meal or a beverage, you're taking it at home, you're taking it in your car, you're taking it in your cubicle, whatever. What if just 2 of those, I'm just throwing out 2 because it's more than 1 and sounds better. What if just 2 of those a month? You can take 88 and do whatever you want with them. Just go ahead, eat with whoever you want, eat by yourself, whatever. But what if just 2 of those a month, you prayerfully invited someone to do that with you? and then just leave the results to God. We have no idea what the results were of this meal other than Jesus threw a smackdown on the Pharisees. Said, yeah, I desire mercy over sacrifice, which he was pointing to. They were really big into all their Mosaic law, making proper sacrifices, how you slay the bird, the bull, the lamb, whatever, and that was a big deal to them, blah, blah, blah. He says, you could do that, but you show no mercy to people? You couldn't be more godless than that. You can be religious and completely godless. And that's what he told them. That was kind of cool, actually. It was worth hearing about this story. But I don't know what else happened at this gathering at Matthew's house. Did other tax collectors begin to follow Jesus? Maybe. Maybe some of them left saying, that was kind of weird. I'm not going to Matthew's house anymore. I don't know. But it happened. And here's what I do know. None of those tax collectors that worked with Matthew would have had a chance to commune and connect with the Son of God unless he'd invited them over. And if you're a follower of Jesus, you have Christ in you, the hope of glory, Colossians 1:27. So when you invite them to have a meal with you or coffee with you, you're not only inviting them to be with you, you're inviting them to actually be with the Jesus that you love, that you believe in. And I'm telling you, you got nothing to lose. That ought to help give you more boldness. Like, oh, I mean, you know, if Jesus is going to be there too, I might as well invite someone to have a meal with me or coffee with me. This is how big of a deal this is. Now, you can go more organized, more intentional, more structured. In fact, one of our former youth that was in my youth group many years ago, Kenneth Clayton, I shouldn't say many, that makes Kenneth sound old, but Kenneth Clayton now lives in Lexington. Doug and Jean, who are sitting right over here, that's their son. He and his wife, Kellen, they invite neighbors to their driveway for desserts, I think once a month. And with their permission, I just thought I'd show a picture of that on the screen. But it's not complicated. They're just like, here's the day of the month we're going to do it. Here's my address. We care about our neighbors. Let's just get together, bring your lawn chair, bring your camper chair over, and we'll eat some desserts and hang out once a month. And that's what they do. And that's how, I don't think they sit there and never say a word to each other. Pretty sure that doesn't happen. You start talking about what's going on in your life. You start talking about the good stuff, the hard stuff. You start actually doing life together. And I'm telling you, when you do something like this, it's powerful. It opens up hearts to perhaps be able to receive some kind of blessing from Jesus Christ. But you know what? You may look at that and say, well, I ain't doing that. That's okay. You don't have to. What you can do to bless someone for an eternity is to simply look at your watch. You're working. You're like, oh, lunch break in 2 minutes. Hey, you want to do lunch with me? Cool, let's go. That's it. It can be that spontaneous. It can be that simple for you to do that. Okay? One of the most caring and connecting questions you could ever ask someone is, would you eat with me? Would you be willing to eat with me today? It's caring. It's a big deal. Most people are going to say yes to that unless they already have plans. And so when you do that, you're getting very New Testament. You're getting very disciple-esque. You're getting very Christ-like. And God can use it to bless someone's socks off. So if you want to change the world, you want to help someone understand the gospel of Jesus Christ, you want to give someone a chance to move from being lost without God but believing in Him and having a relationship with Him. You want to do that? I got great news for you. You don't have to know a bunch of theology. You don't have to be able to preach, be bold and confrontational. Just got to eat with somebody. Go grab coffee with somebody. It's that simple. So, the next step I want to invite you to consider taking today is simply this. Invite a neighbor to a meal and make it a goal to do this twice between now and Christmas. We're getting real, we're getting practical, putting a little timeline on it. And we're going to actually do this Or we're going to actually think, that was a really cool idea. I'm going to go home and eat right now because eating sounds great. Brunch sounds awesome right now. And then forget all about this. That's what we do, and I know that. I do the same thing. But what if we actually did this? What if we made a plan and say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to let this moment escape me. I think this is a cool idea. This is something I really can do. I do this 90 times a month between now and Christmas, which, by the way, is a month and a half away, which either gets you excited or stressed. I'm not sure which. But that's more than a month. You're talking 120 opportunities, just twice between now and Christmas. Would you do this? And let me clarify. We say invite a neighbor. I put in quotations, neighbor. That's a very churchy word. We don't often, when we think about neighbor, we think logistically, the person that lives next to me. But in the Bible, Jesus taught very clearly that to love your neighbors, your neighbor is absolutely anyone that comes in your path. That's it. Anyone who comes in your path. And I'm hoping that as we read this book together and we talk about these blessed practices, what you're starting to see is that everyone that's in your path is there for a reason. It is no accident you live where you live. It is no accident you work where you work. It is no accident you're in the department that you work in. It is no accident that you happen to have a kid or a grandkid on that team so that you sit in those bleachers in those places with those people. It's no accident that you're at the gym, member of the gym that you're a member of, and you happen to see those people almost every time you go. That is not by accident. Those are the people God has put in your path, that He wants to use you to bless them. Will you do it? So here's what we're going to do. In your seat, hopefully you saw that when you came in and maybe even picked it up and looked at it. If there's not one in your seat, maybe there's one in an empty seat near you that you can pick up and grab, but it's just simply a card that asks two questions. Who will it be? And when and where could it be? What I want you to do as we pray together, Sherry's just going to play a little bit of music while we do this. We're not going to sing again. How about we brainstorm with God as we pray? In a moment, I'm going to pray out loud, but you pray where you are. And then after I pray, we're just going to let the music play and be silent for a couple of additional minutes. But may your prayer be, if you believe and follow Jesus, may your prayer be, God, show me an idea of who this could be. Is it a neighbor? Is it a coworker? Is it a classmate? Is it a teammate? Someone at the gym? Someone in the bleachers? Who could it be? And then when and where could it be? Brainstorm it. And put it down on that card. Don't let this just be an idea you think about. Make it a plan that you will carry out for His glory. Let's bow together as we pray. Father, we come before you and we thank you for teaching us today how honestly easy, cool, and powerful it is, although it can be hard. Catching a glimpse of how this worked, even through your Son, Jesus, who had meals with so many people. What an easy way for us to bless someone closer to you, Father. So in the quietness of this moment, reveal to us who to invite, to have coffee with us, to have a meal with us. And give us ideas of when it could be or where it could be. Obviously, we know we're going to probably ask them and make a plan potentially. But Father, Lord, help us to not miss this moment while you're speaking to our hearts, to get intentional, to get strategic. Help us to not miss this moment. Open up our hearts. Reveal to us who you are leading us to bless by inviting them to